Hey guys, welcome back to our little EU4 guide. So we've gone over the treasury. You get taxation, production, trade, and then you're paying for your advisors, your army, and your fleet. Manpower goes from 0 to max. If it's ever 0, you're going to get revolts against you. If it's ever maxed, you're kind of throwing away manpower. Mercenaries do not use manpower. Normal troops do use manpower. Mercenaries are usually 2 or 3 times as expensive as non-mercenaries. So you mostly want mercenary infantry and non-mercenary cavalry and cannons. Stability. Super important when you're changing the religion of provinces that you've conquered that weren't the correct religion to begin with. Super important when you've expanded your empire. All of your new provinces are very likely to revolt, so you want to keep your stability high during that time. But if you've been stable for a long time, you can let your stability drop all the way down to -3 without actually suffering too much from it. So it costs administrative points to get stability. So it's always a trade-off of, do I really care? Do I really need my stability super high? I would argue, for example, if you're playing as Austria, that you don't need a high stability at all. In the early game, because all of your provinces have no revolt risk. Or like if you're playing as Bohemia, same deal. Like all these provinces have been Bohemian for so long that they're just not going to revolt. Whereas if you're playing like Lithuania, a lot of their provinces are newly conquered territory that's the wrong religion. Like some of them are Orthodox and some of them are not. Actually, maybe they changed that. I guess the Ottomans is a great example because we are the Ottomans. A lot of our provinces, like Epirus, they still have nationalist uprisings possible and intolerance, and they're the wrong religion, and there's lots of disharmony. So you might want stability to be higher for the Ottomans, but it's a trade-off because it costs administrative points to do that, and your administrative points could be better used to upgrade administrative tech, build temples, and unlock idea groups, get really cool idea groups and stuff like that. Prestige, you should always try to have 100 prestige. A lot of times you're going to get decisions that give you 2 options. They're like lose 33 prestige or lose 700 gold. And you're gonna have to choose how important is prestige to me compared to gold. And usually the right choice, if you're a warmongering nation that's always going to be fighting, is to lose prestige because you can get it really easily just by winning a lot of fights. But if you're a small nation that is not going to be fighting a lot of wars, a lot of times, especially a small trade nation like the Hansa or Venice or something like that, it can often be the right choice to just throw away gold in order to keep prestige, because prestige is really important. And the only way to get it easily is in battle. And if you're not going to be fighting a lot of battles, you really need to get your prestige another way, and you want to keep that prestige intact if you can. Prestige's most important aspect is that it allows you to expand your empire more quickly by reducing better relations over time and aggressive expansion impact, while also making your troops stronger. If you have negative 100 prestige and you're fighting against someone who has plus 100 prestige, I think you're going to get like a 10... You'll get minus 10 morale, and they'll get plus 10 morale, which is a huge deal. A huge deal. You're gonna lose all your fights. So another impact of that is that if you crush a nation, and then you crush them again, and you like keep them siege forever, their prestige is eventually going to drop to negative 100, and it's going to be even easier to fight them the next time. So it's kind of a snowballing effect. A prestigious nation is a nation that everyone feels is going to be successful in the future because they've been successful in the past, and that's who the mercenaries want to work for, and that's who the people want to trade with, because stability is important for a trading partner. You don't want to be trading with someone and then have them be sacked by the Vikings or whatever the heck will happen. Legitimacy, you don't have much control over this, so it's not even worth mentioning. It's nice to have high legitimacy, but what can you do? Power projection, we're skipping again. The first tab is the government, where you pick your advisors and set your national focus, and then diplomacy, where you talk to other people while also being able to check on your diplomatic reputation and diplomatic relations, and set your rival and see who's rivaled you and see who's likely to attack you in the future. The economy tab is important because you can reduce by half how much you're paying your army in exchange for making them terrible at fighting. But sometimes you want to have a large army so that no one attacks you, but you don't want to use it because no one's attacking you, so you set your army slider all the way to 0. That's very common. Your fleet slider, as long as you have some trade ships, that you just basically almost never want to lower your fleet slider, because it makes them so bad at trading that even though you're paying half price for your navy, like you're losing so much money by not paying your trade ships that it doesn't balance out. Colonial and missionary maintenance, I don't even know why there's sliders. Never touch those sliders, just leave them maxed. And advisors up here are often very expensive. The later it gets in the game, the more expensive your advisors will get. So if you if you have a positive budget with your army unfunded, but then someone attacks you and you have to fund your army, and now your budget goes negative, and then you lose some soldiers they need to reinforce, and your budget goes even more negative, and your money is falling, and you're pretty sure you're going to run out and have to start taking out loans, that's a good time to fire all your advisors. Just click this little boot and boot them the heck out of office, because it's better to lose, 20 monarch points or something than to go bankrupt and die. Trade tab you don't need to worry about. Tech tab is good for westernization and basically lets you keep up on tech. Remember, this is the discount you're getting on tech, which is a function of how far behind you are your neighbors. So if your neighbors tech up first, then you get a discount. So you should always let your neighbors tech up first unless you're actively fighting a war and you need the next tech right now. So usually you want to let your pool of monarch power cap out before you even upgrade techs. Don't be in a hurry, man. Don't be in a hurry. It's cheaper to wait. Ideas. Your nation has special national ideas that gives them their own national identity, and then they diverge even further from other nations over time by unlocking additional national ideas. Then there are the generic ideas. So sorry for coughing, man. I'm trying not to. You got administrative, diplomatic, and military ideas. Often it's best to not get the administrative ideas first, because you can unlock your second idea group a lot faster if you take a different idea group first. That said, the administrative idea groups are the best idea groups. Innovative is by far, in my opinion, the best idea group of all idea groups. But often, remember, you're probably only going to unlock 3 idea groups before the end of the game. So if you're planning to play all the way to 1820, Innovative makes a perfect choice for the first idea group, because its primary feature is that it makes all future techs cheaper. It just gives you additional monarch power. Now, you might incorrectly think of, hey, making techs cheaper means I can get them earlier. But really what making techs cheaper means is that you can spend those monarch points on something else. Right? If you make my tech 5% cheaper, that's 5% more administrative power I have that I can use to expand my nation or up my stability. And if I have additional military points, I can get a much better general. Or I can harsh treat people and not have to waste manpower fighting revolts and all that kind of stuff. So anything that gives you plus monarch power is always good, because you have several resources: monarch power, money, and manpower, right? And the most valuable of those resource types is monarch power, because it's the one that's the most difficult to raise. It slowly trickles in at the same rate for the entire game, and it's very difficult to increase that rate. And even if you do all the things necessary to increase that rate as much as possible, it's still a slow trickle of stuff coming in. So anything you can do to increase monarch power is always drastically better than increasing money. Money is the second most valuable resource, but it's nowhere near as valuable as monarch power, and by the end of the game, money is going to be completely worthless to you, because all you can spend it on once you've hired a giant navy and a giant army, and gotten the most expensive advisors that you can, and built all of the necessary buildings that you wanted to up the supply limit and let you move more troops around or to do other stuff. All that will be left to spend money on is getting more money. You'll be able to dump money into getting more money, which is, that's beneficial. You'll have more money. But if you already have the biggest army and you don't care anymore, then money is worthless. So at some point, money is worthless. In the early game, money is very valuable, but still not as valuable as monarch points. And then the third thing, manpower. Because you can just replace troops with mercenaries and ignore the manpower thing altogether, money is more important than manpower. The more money you have, the less manpower you'll use. So, who cares how much manpower you have if you don't even need to use it? But it is the third resource, and it is important, just not as important as the other two. So basically, when you're picking idea groups, you want to say, how much monarch power is this idea group going to save me? And then after that, you're going to say, how much money is this idea group going to get me? And then you're going to say, how much manpower is this idea group going to get me? And then the final thing is how much better... Either idea group will help you to fund more troops, or better troops, or to make the troops you already have fight better. Because all of the things in this game basically come down to ways to make you have a stronger presence, military presence. So, for example, sorry again, say I take the diplomatic idea, and the first thing it does is unlock an extra diplomatic relation. So instead of 4, now I have 5. That's going to dramatically strengthen my military presence because it'll allow me to have a 5th ally. So right now, I'm allied to QQ and the Timurids. So the total amount of military troops that I can field is mine plus theirs, which is a lot. If I unlock something that lets me get another ally, like the Mamluks, then I get so many more troops from having another ally, compared to if I unlocked an idea group that was to like give me plus 10% of my own troops. Plus 10% of my own troops is 2.7 soldiers. 2.7. I mean, that's nothing compared to adding +1 relation group. So +1 diplomatic relation might give me an additional 57 troops if I use it to ally the Timurids, whereas if I get plus 10% total force limits, then I'll get an extra 2 units. So you got to kind of think of things in terms of how much stronger will this make me militarily. So in that regard, innovative is going to give you 5% more monarch power across the board because you're not dumping it into text anymore. It's going to let you recruit mercenaries for 25% cheaper, which means that you can replace about 25% more of your normal troops with mercenaries. And mercenaries are better than normal troops. They're significantly more expensive, but they're much better. So if you imagine your army like you have 27 force limits, or right now I have 27 force limits. The cheapest army I could get would be 27 non-mercenary infantry, and it would be terrible at fighting, and it would cost a ton of manpower every time they fought. Every time I fought one battle with an equal-sized force, I'd probably lose about 13,000 manpower, and I would be very bad at fighting. Now, but the cost would be 200. I don't know. The cost, let's just say the cost was 100. Now I replace half of those troops with cavalry, and the cost goes from 100 to 170 or something, right? Because the cavalry is 2.5 times more expensive, and I only replace half the troops with cavalry, so the cost of the army is going to go to about 170. The combat effectiveness of the army is going to go to about 130% of what it was before, whereas the price goes to 170% of what it was before. Now say I replace all of the infantry with mercenaries, and that's going to raise the total price of the army to like 240. And the combat effectiveness of the army is going to stay exactly the same at 130, but the manpower cost of fighting with that army is going to be cut in half, because half of those troops aren't using manpower anymore. So in the first fight, sure, I only have 130 strength and I'm paying 240 for it, whereas if I fight against a guy who's pure infantry, he might have 100 strength and be paying 100 for it. So that's crazy. I'm paying way more than him for almost no benefit. But if we fight and then retreat and then wait 6 months and then fight again and then retreat and then wait 6 months and fight again, over the course of those 3 battles, he's going to lose about 1.5 times more manpower than I'm going to lose. And once somebody runs out of manpower, not only do they no longer get more troops, which is a big deal, but they start to pay troops excessive amounts of money to reinforce, that then that reinforcement that they're paying for doesn't actually happen. It also leads to peasant revolts, which cost even more manpower. So like the penalty for having low manpower is to lose manpower. Like it's a snowball effect that can cause someone to basically have no army whatsoever. So you can win a war without winning any fights just by running your opponent out of manpower and then continuing to fight him with your mercenaries. So you can use gold to win wars. Anyway, so if you ask yourself, you know, how much does this prestige strengthen my fighting force? Minus 1% prestige decay might mean that I have 100 prestige instead of 50 during a battle. And that is like plus 5% morale. So this little idea chunk is kind of like plus 5% morale, which is a big deal. This little thing, minus 25% mercenary strength, is kind of like plus, I don't know, maybe 10% manpower, right? Excuse me. Tech cost is like plus 5% monarch points. And monarch points generally do make your soldiers stronger because they allow you to invest more into ideas and be 1 or 2 idea groups ahead of somebody. If you're looking at this and saying, okay, this is kind of like 5% stronger, and this is kind of like 5% stronger, and this is kind of like 5% stronger, this one, army tradition, is huge. I haven't actually gone over the military tab yet where we would talk about army tradition, say what it does, but it gives you better generals. And remember, if I have a 6-star general, a 0-6 general, and you have a 0-5 general, I'm actually 10% stronger than you. 20% stronger than you during the shock phase, and 10% because there are 2 phases. So it's a really big deal to have a better general than somebody. So this idea group is kind of like plus 5% strength as well. So all 4 of these first groups are going to add to the strength of your personal army by about 5% each. The next one, resilient state, reduces inflation cost. This one is, it's going to save you administrative points every time you're forced to pay down inflation, but reducing inflation by 2% costs 75 administrative points. So this is only going to save you 7.5 for every 2% inflation you get. Even if you got the most inflation of any nation in the world because you have 10 gold mines, this still wouldn't be very good. So this is probably like about a 0.5% boost to monarch points, and only in the administrative category. But it's still, you know, it boosts monarch points. It's not terrible. Minus monthly war exhaustion. Again, this is going to save you diplomatic points. Every like 6 to 12 months that you're at war, you're going to have to pay 75 to 100 diplomatic power to reduce war exhaustion in order to keep fighting that war. And it goes dramatically up if you take a lot of attrition, or if you lose a lot of battles, or if you have a lot of people sieging your territory. If you're losing a war, you can end up dumping, you know, 500 diplomatic power into reducing your war exhaustion. And what this does is it saves you all of that diplomatic power. So this is probably over the course of the game going to be something like minus 5% diplomatic power. I mean, plus 5% total diplomatic monarch power. And any group that gives you additional monarch power is good. Although diplomatic power is the worst kind of monarch power. And 5% isn't a ton. It's still plus monarch power. And there's not a lot of idea groups that give you additional monarch power. So I really like this. Honestly, just this optimism thing alone is why I started using the innovative idea group at all, because I got sick and tired of always having to leave wars or lose wars because my war exhaustion would get too high, and that would cause my manpower not to replenish. It would cause revolts all over my country, and I would die, and I'd have to be dumping diplo points into it. I'd run out of diplo points, and I'd just be dead. But with this, you're just never going to have to deal with war exhaustion ever again. It seems like such a minor benefit, plus 0.05 war exhaustion, but that translates to you will never get war exhaustion unless you completely lose a war. So it's really good. Leaders without upkeep is useless. This will not increase the strength of your army at all, and you should just completely ignore it. It's crap. So 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%, maybe 0.05%, and maybe 5%, and then 0. And then the last one, 25% cheaper advisor costs. Okay, this is going to give you, right now, this would give me about 1 ducat per month, which would allow me to convert 2 normal infantry into mercenaries, right? So of my 27 troops, that'd be 10% of my army would become mercenaries instead of normal dudes. So that's kind of like plus or minus 10 or plus 10% manpower. So it's very similar to this in effectiveness. Giving me more gold makes me able to have slightly more powerful troops, or slightly more of my powerful troops. So I really like this one. By the end of the game, though, instead of just giving me 1 ducat per month, this is going to be giving me like 10 or 15 ducats per month. But my budget will have also grown proportionally over that time. So throughout the game, this is always going to be about as effective as it is right in the beginning, and it's always pretty effective. It's just plus money, and plus money will let me have horses instead of infantry, or mercenaries instead of normal troops. So it's always going to make my army a little bit stronger. So this idea group makes your army much stronger. It's, in my opinion, the best idea group in the game. Very cool, man. Very cool. That's how you analyze an idea group. I don't know that I'm going to read through every single thing. I'm just going to go over some of the highlights. So the best idea groups, in my opinion: innovative, because of all of the reasons I've already told you. Religious is extremely good if you have to do a lot of religious conversions, but remember, it is possible to get by without it. In the very early game, there are provinces that you just can't convert. Anything richer than a certain degree, you can just never convert. And that will mean that your nation will get more and more religiously divided until it kind of collapses in on itself if you conquer too many provinces of the wrong religion. And by taking the religious idea group, you eliminate that problem altogether, because it makes you much stronger at converting provinces, so you can very quickly just convert all your lands to the correct religion. And that's amazing in the early game. It's really good. A lot of nations, like, I only have 52% religious unity. Like, I'm gonna have tons of revolts, and I'm gonna collapse in upon myself if I stay with 52% religious unity for too long. So religious can be a very powerful idea group for Lithuania, for the Ottomans, for Russia, for anyone who's kind of conquering heathen territory all the time. And it gives you a very strong casus belli, a cause of war, to attack heathens, and it gives you lower revolt risk for people you've already converted, and it makes you really good at converting people, which gives you lower revolt risk. It's a generally good idea group, but your ability to religiously convert people increases over time as you tech up your administrative tech. So in the early game, you can't convert certain people, but by like 1600, you'll be able to convert anyone you want, with or without this. So it's one of those idea groups that's crazy good in the early game, but not really useful in the late game. So if you're planning to play a short game, like if you're going to play to 1650 and then move on to the next nation, which is a very fun way to play, and I do recommend that style of play, religious idea group can be one of the best idea groups. But if you're planning to play all the way to 1820, like if you're going for the Poland into space achievement, or if you're, you know, you're playing a very small nation and you want to do something really big with it, and so you know you're going to have to play the whole time. Nations that I played all the way through with, by the way, like Portugal, because colonization can be fun forever, or like Hesse, because they're small but you can become big with them, or Brandenburg, because forming Prussia and then fighting the entire world at once in world wars can be really fun. Nations that I wouldn't recommend going through the entire playthrough with, anyone in Italy, because at some point you're just going to be so strong that, like, what's the point in playing? The Ottomans, like, eventually you're going to be so strong that expansion is just kind of pointless. Burgundy, France, England, Castile, any of those nations, it's not really fun to keep playing all the way through the game, because at some point you get so strong that what's the point anymore. So there are nations that you should expect to play through the whole game with. Like Brandenburg, like I said, is a great example. And for those nations, I would not recommend taking the religious idea group. But for nations like France or the Ottomans or Lithuania, or somebody that you don't really plan to play for very long with, religious is a great idea group to take, because it's powerful early and you're only going to play early, so totally fine. Economic idea groups, this is misleading, okay? Economic idea groups, the most powerful thing about economic idea group isn't what you read. If you read all these things, you're like, well, that's, you know, plus 10% to taxes, but taxes are only a third of my budget, and over time they're going to become even less than a third of my budget. That's not very strong, right? And then you're going to say, okay, building costs minus 20%, but that's only minus 20% to the gold cost of making buildings, and eventually I'm going to have so much gold that who cares how much my buildings cost, right? A yearly inflation, I'm not going to have inflation, so I don't care. Interest per annum, I'm not going to take out loans, so who cares? Possible advisors, that is completely irrelevant. Land maintenance modifier, minus 10%, that's actually pretty good. 10% more troops, that's awesome. Production efficiency, plus 10%, again, this is kind of like plus 3% to your total budget. And then reduce inflation costs, that's going to save you a tiny amount of administrative monarch points, but almost not even enough to mention. So everything in this idea group is kind of bad, except for this one. But taking the economic idea group is going to unlock certain events that are going to just add base tax to your provinces. And in order to see the kind of the hidden benefit of various idea groups, you really have to read the wiki. But it can be beneficial to take the economic idea group, just because it's going to make all of the provinces you actually own better. It's going to give you plus base tax to your provinces, which is going to give you a little bit of force limits. It's going to, you know, just make your provinces harder to conquer. It's going to make you better at vassalizing people. It's going to, you know, it's going to be good in a lot of ways. So I don't recommend ever taking the economic idea group, but it's more powerful than it looks. Nations that I would consider taking economic idea group with are like France, where you have all this starting territory and none of it has any buildings in it, and it's all so rich that you want to make buildings in all of it. So the minus 20% building cost can actually be pretty beneficial. Also with France, you're not going to be playing long enough for you know, for the fact that you took kind of a subpar idea group to really bite you or whatever. So economic is pretty popular for France, and any of the horde nations I really like economic with, because you need it to reform your government. You need either innovative economic, or I don't know, maybe administrative or something. And what's the point in taking innovative for the 5% tech boost if you're a horde nation and you're never going to tech up? Like, you got a minus 50% tech cost thing already. And troops are completely free to reinforce. Anyway, point is, economics not very good. There are times when you should take it, but those times are rare, and you should just basically say, I won't take that. Expansionist, worst idea group in my opinion. Lots of people take it because it gives you free Casus Belli on everyone east of this line, and that's cool. It means you can set up a giant, and you can take over all of India and beat up China and stuff, and that will make your nation a lot more powerful. But it's boring as crap. I don't like fighting on two sides of the map. So for example, if you were the Ottomans like I am, and you took the expansionist idea group and you went to India and you kind of set up a colony in India and started expanding throughout India, and then you started expanding throughout China, while also trying to expand your borders over here, then you'd constantly be doing this, right? Zooming to exactly this level, but now I can't see the provinces. So I need to zoom in, see the province name, and then zoom back out so I can still see the armies, and then move my screen back over to India, and then zoom in so I can see the province names, and then move my armies around, and then back up, and then zoom back over. And you spend more than half your time moving the camera around. I just really hate that. So I don't recommend expansionist ideas. I don't recommend, honestly, expanding your government, your borders in multiple places at once. It can be okay, for example, as Portugal or Great Britain, to ignore Europe and focus only on colonization, and it can be okay to ignore colonization and only focus on expanding in the mainland. But I don't like doing both at once, and I definitely don't like expanding in 3 or 4 or 5 places at once. Like there are several achievements for taking like Norway or Portugal and expanding to both Africa and Asia, and expanding into the New World, and doing all those things in the same game. Don't do that. It's not fun. That's one of the reasons I love CK2 so much and EU4 so much, but I don't play very much Vicky 2, is because Vicky 2 is all about colonization, which means there's so much map scrolling, it pisses me off. Administrative ideas. One of the best idea groups, I would say. It gives you plus 10% administrative power right off the bat. So just by making administrative text cheaper, this is actually probably a total like plus 5% admin points. But like I said, admin points are so crazy crucial that like giving me a whole bunch more of those is awesome. Goods produced nationally plus 10% is so huge. It's plus 10% to not only production income, but also trade income generated by all of your provinces. So you know how like in economic, plus 10% taxes, this is going to be actually a total of like plus 2% total money for your country, whereas this one is going to be more like plus 8% total money for your country. It's like 3 or 4 times better than plus taxes. Goods produced nationally is a big deal. It's really cool. Lots of extra money. Possible advisors, I hate that. Available mercenaries plus 50%. This is so amazingly crucial. It means that you can get by with running almost no army when you're not at war, and then suddenly immediately recruit 30 dudes right away. That's awesome. Mercenaries are great, and being able to recruit them whenever you want and then fire them whenever you want is really good. Because like I said, it takes 23 months for the salary you're paying a fully funded mercenary to equal the cost of just hiring them again. So if you're going to be at peace for 23 months, which is pretty common, firing all your mercenaries and hiring them again is pretty cool. But you can't do that with the default mercenary stockpile, because by default, the mercenaries you have available, like you can see, I only have 12 mercenaries available. So if I have an army size of 27 and I can only hire 12 mercenaries, then I'm going to have to hire 12 mercenaries, wait a long time, then hire 12 more, and then wait a long time, and then hire 12 more before I can actually replenish my army. So having twice as many, or not twice as many, but having a lot more mercenaries available can be really, really helpful. You can see administrative has 3 things that have to do with mercenaries, right? Minus 25 mercenary costs. We already kind of talked about how this is basically a plus 10% to your manpower and to your strength and to your ability to deplete someone else's manpower. It's very good. Minus 33% mercenary maintenance. This is even more powerful than that if you keep the same mercenaries for a long time. This helps you both with how much the mercenaries cost initially, and with how much they cost to maintain, and how much they cost to replenish. I don't know why I said both when there's 3 things. But this only helps you with how much they cost to maintain. So when they actively fight, this isn't helping you, and when you actively hire new ones, this isn't helping you. But a lot of times you're just going to be sitting at peace and paying those mercenaries, and this can be quite helpful during that time. Core creation cost minus 25%. This is basically giving you a whole bunch of extra administrative points, and that's great. Anything that gives me additional monarch power, I'm madly in love with. Interest per annum's kind of crap. Don't care about that. You get that just by having a high stability anyway, so whatever. So yeah, administrative idea group can be really good, especially for a nation like Burgundy, where you already, like, you start the game with cheaper mercenaries. Play at some point Burgundy on hard difficulty with AI bonuses. Go innovative first for this idea group, and then go administrative for this, this, and this. And combined, your mercenaries will be cheaper than your regular troops. And you'll have a ton of them, and they'll constantly be replenishing, and they won't use any manpower, and it's just insanely fun. Just do that. It's awesome. Try it. Humanism is one of the best idea groups for the troubled nations, the nations that tend to collapse in on themselves. So horde nations like the Timurids, every time their king dies, there's a succession crisis, and everybody fights to the death over who's going to be the new king. That means that the nation often fractures into a million pieces and just kind of disappears. Even though it starts the game as literally the most powerful nation in the game, it's almost always gone by 1650 or something, just because they have so much problems with rebels, so many problems, so much problem, so much, like, let's see, much and many. Much is like filling up a cup with something, and if you poured problem into the cup, not problems, because if there were 3 distinct problems, it'd have to be many, not much. Anyway, I don't care. Golden Horde is a great example of someone for whom taking humanism first can be just essential and awesome. Lithuania, another great example. Anyone who's going to conquer Sunni territory but is not themselves Sunni should definitely take humanism as either their first idea or their second idea or something like that. And some of the nations that tech up really slowly, like the Horde techs up so slowly that honestly, especially if you're constantly coring new territory, you're just never going to get your third idea group, even if you play all the way to the 1800s or something. So taking humanism as your very first idea group can be insanely crucial for them. Let's talk about what humanism actually does. Maybe we don't even need to. You can just trust me. It's all about minus revolt risk and allowing you to have more religious diversity without having your nation collapse, right? So minus revolt risk, religious unity. This is -3 revolt risk. This is -2. So for a total of -5 revolt risk, that's like religious gives you -1 revolt risk. This gives you -5. It's like the only idea group that gives you -5 revolt risk. And then -10 years of nationalism. Nationalism gives you 10 revolt risk for 30 years. And now it gives you 10 revolt risk for 20 years. So that's like +5 revolt risk plus 10 more for a short time. Accepted culture threshold. This is having the wrong culture in a province, I think, is gives you less money, gives you less manpower, and gives you a little bit of additional revolt risk. Also causes you to have like cultural revolts where they try to, like, imagine we're playing the Ottomans and this province was culture of Bulgarian, right? So there's a possibility, let's see, where is it, that these Bulgarian nationalists will take all of my Bulgarian provinces and try to become the nation of Bulgaria, right? So that's bad, and having them be an accepted culture, actually I guess they already are an accepted culture, but I think having them be an accepted culture makes that less likely to happen, at least. Yeah, I forgot, I already did this in one of the other videos. I'm just decreasing local autonomy and saying I am the king, you do not rule, I rule here. That's a good quest. I guess I didn't talk about quests, but quests are kind of like a guideline of what you should be doing at any given time. You'll always have 3 quests to choose from, and you want to pick a quest that you're gonna complete within 5 years, because anything that you're not going to complete for a long time, you could have completed a couple other quests and then taken that quest after or something. So read all of the quests and just pick the ones you want to do. And the quest that I picked is City of the World's Desire. It basically just says take Constantinople away from Byzantium, because how dare they have Constantinople, it's totally mine. These are national decisions. I guess I kind of skipped past the idea groups, but these are national decisions. Adopt the dervish system. They're kind of country specific, so you should really just read them and then do or don't do them. This little button next to each national decision, if you click it, then it will no longer show up in the in the tooltip saying a new national decision is available. If you leave it clicked, then it's going to pop up when you're able to do this. So some of the national decisions, like these ones, are just straight up beneficial. There's no downside. They're awesome. You should just take them, right? Other national decisions, like this one, are a trade-off. Like you can get +1 revolt risk in exchange for +10% manpower. No, I'm not going to do that, because revolt risk will cost me a lot of manpower, a lot more than 10% of my manpower over time. So I don't want any revolt risk. So by unchecking this thing, it's just never going to ask me to do that again. Back to idea groups. Okay, so innovative, best idea group for a long game. Religious, one of the best idea groups for a short game. Humanism, best idea group for any country that has trouble with revolts. I would recommend never taking humanism. And then if you lose a game because revolts were just too much for you, play that country again from scratch and take humanism as your first idea group. That's the only time I'd ever take humanism. But when it's good, it's amazingly good. Espionage, useless, don't ever get it. Diplomatic, like I said, having an additional ally can be far more beneficial than just having a couple more of your own troops. That said, I don't really like the diplomatic idea group. It saves you money on your next Diplotech. It means that you can do a no CB war for 1 stability instead of 2. It means that you can break royal marriages without a stability hit. It means that you can truce break for only -4 stability instead of -5. So being able to do certain things that normally you're not allowed to do is fun. And I would definitely recommend taking the diplomatic idea group if you play as Austria or as anyone in Italy, because having minus stability impact of taking and breaking royal marriages can be really beneficial for people in and around that area where there's so many small countries that you want to be friends with for a little while, but then you don't give a crap about. It gives you an additional diplomat, it gives you more diplomatic relations, it makes it easier to become pope, it gives you additional diplomatic reputation, and we talked about how good that is. So +2 diplomatic reputation is basically +5 or +10 to every decision. Will you become my ally? Will you royal marry me? Will you allow me access to walk through your land? Will you join me in this attacking war? Will you join me in a defensive war? All of those things. Will you become my vassal? That's a big deal. Like asking someone to become your vassal. Having +2 diplomatic reputation is a big deal. In that you can take vassals for free without ever having to fight or gain any aggressive expansion impact. So it can be good if you're surrounded by small people, like for example the Hanso or Austria or anyone in Italy. But in general, stay away from it. Trade ideas, one of the best idea groups, just because it gives you insane amounts of money. I mean, you can imagine, we don't even really have to go over it, you can imagine this gives you 2 additional merchants, a whole bunch of, 3 additional merchants, a whole bunch of boosts to how good the merchants you already have are at doing stuff. Without the trade ideas, you're never going to make more than $1,000 a month. With trade idea groups, you can make like 3,000. And at some point, there are quests in the game that say like get more than 65% of your income to come from trade, and those are achievable. You can do that. Is that insane or what? Like you start the game with like 30% of your income coming from trade, but if you do play your cards right, you can get that to 60 or 70% of your income coming from trade. So basically, always take the trade idea group if you're going to play the game longer than a short time. So, for example, if you're playing France or Burgundy and you just want to play for a little while, have some mercenaries, crush some people, and be like, that was so fun, then stay away from the trade idea group. But if you're going to play for a long time, it's one of the only, it's the only trade group in the entire diplomatic section that is good, that is really good. The rest of them are just kind of okay. Trade is really good. You don't need any any diplomatic idea groups if you're playing a short game, though. Just go for all military groups or a couple of administrative and like 1 administrative, 2 military, that'd be fine. But if you're playing a long game and you're going to get all 8 of your idea groups, you got idea groups to spare. Put one of them into trade. There's no reason not to. Exploration idea groups, you have to take this in order to colonize. There's no point in taking this if you're not colonizing. So this is a Portugal, Castile, France, England only trade group. If you're not one of those 4 nations, don't ever take this. Maritime, don't take this even if you are one of the maritime nations. It's just stupid. You don't want to be better at using your ships because you can only just make more expensive and more, better ships. You don't need to make the ships you already have better. That's dumb. Kind of saves you money, but who cares? Influence idea group. This is only good for Austria, I would say. Basically, like, you get more money from your vassals, but like I said maybe in the first video, the amount of money you get from your vassals is negligible. What your vassals provide to you isn't money. They provide you with troops that don't cost manpower. They make you stronger as a nation. So you don't want more money from your vassals. That's dumb. You want less money from your vassals, more troops from your vassals. Time to fabricate claims just means you're less likely to be caught fabricating claims, which does not matter at all in 1.8. It used to be extremely important in 1.7, but those days are past. If you play on hard difficulty, this actually might be good. But if you're not playing on hard difficulty, then it doesn't matter at all. Don't even bother. Diplomatic annexation cost just saves you some difficult points. Who cares? Aggressive expansion impact minus 20%. Extremely useful, but it's the only thing in here that's extremely useful. So taking a whole idea group just for one thing like that, I wouldn't do it. I do often take influence idea groups when I play nations like Austria or France or anyone who wants to have tons of allies within the Holy Roman Empire in order to try to become emperor. Influence can be quite good. So far we've hit on 3 absolutely crucial, awesome idea groups, right? Innovative, administrative, and trade. The rest are just kind of okay. Some of them are good in the short game, some of them are good in the long game, some of them are only good if you have lots of revolts, some of them are only good if you're colonizing. Then we get to the military idea groups. Now, every single one, except for naval, of these idea groups is very, very good. But there's a caveat. Now, remember, my supply limit is 27 right now, and I'm allied to the Timurids, who have a 51 supply limit. If my troops fight, it costs me manpower and money. If I let my ally do my fighting for me, it costs me nothing. So in general, if all you're worried about is becoming the strongest nation you can become and winning the game by blobbing and stuff, your own personal troops don't need to be very strong. Most people who play through and go for a world conquest don't take any military idea groups. Like you can take like Mantua and conquer literally every province in the entire world without ever taking a single military idea group. So military idea groups are more about fun than they are about practical, because they only increase the strength of your own personal troops, and in any given war, you shouldn't be using your own troops. There's just never a reason for your own troops to fight if your only goal is to like conquer the world. That said, I almost always take military idea groups because I like to have my own troops fight, and that's why I play the game. It's fun to, you know, walk around and crush things. So just remember that there's different ways to play the game. It's a sandbox game. You can play it however the heck you want. And if what you want to do is have really strong troops and go crush people, then these are the idea groups you want to take. If you want to win the game, whatever the heck that means, you know, if you just want to have the highest score, the most territory, all that stuff, don't take any of these groups. Take all of these groups and a couple of these, right? So like an example of the idea groups that you would take if you were trying to literally conquer the world, right? You want to go for influence, diplomatic, innovative, administrative, if and only if you're going to conquer your own provinces. Definitely humanism, absolutely required. Probably religious, really big deal. And then you'd have all of your idea groups and you'd be done. You just wouldn't take any of these. So, oh, I mean also trade. So 3 from this set, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 from this set, and then maybe exploration. So that'd be your 8 idea groups. None of the military idea groups does matter. So if you're playing Prussia and your goal is not to win the game, but your goal is to not have any allies and then yet still win huge wars against all the other nations on the planet, then these are the idea groups you want. And I find military idea groups to be the most fun. I hope I've you know, conveyed that message. I kind of belabored the point. But aristocracy makes people less likely to attack you. So if you're playing as a very small nation and on hard difficulty with AI bonuses and you're getting crushed because you have a house rule of no allies allowed and then everyone just kills you, take this as your first idea group. No one will ever attack you again. Pretty cool. Makes all of your territory twice as expensive to core, which means that it's just not worth the investment to try to core your territory, so nobody will want your territory. They'll just be like, whatever. When you take other people's territory and then core it, they will take it back because their core still exists on that territory. But 50 years later, once their core expires, they won't want to take it back. So just make sure you never take territory from somebody who's going to still be super strong after you took territory from them, you know? If you crush a tiny nation, I don't care that they still have cores there, they're dead. Offensive, it also makes you really good at fighting with cavalry, and it gives you a tiny bit of manpower, like 25% manpower. And it gives you an additional diplomat and makes it cost a little bit less diplomatic points to reduce war aggression, and it gives you an additional leader. But none of that is nearly as important as the double coring cost thing. Kind of all of these give you a little bit of manpower. Quantity is one of the best idea groups for somebody who wants to just full siege people. So there are kind of a couple of ways to fight a war. Imagine I'm fighting Hungary, I could put all my troops right here, and then stand 2 troops right here and siege this province super slowly. And Hungary would walk over and try to stop me from sieging the province. I'd move all my troops into their territory, fight them, push them back, wait until the siege was done. Then I'd put all my troops right here, and I'd siege 1, 2, 3, 4 provinces at once with 2 troops in each province. Stand my troops here. Whenever Hungary tried to come and knock me out of here, I would reinforce wherever they attacked. And that's kind of like the stay in a ball and slowly siege up across their nation way of fighting. And that's a very fun way of fighting. I like that way of fighting. But it's also very slow, and it involves losing a crap ton of manpower, and it'll cost a ton of money. It's very expensive, and whatever. And even if you're much more powerful than your opponent, it's going to take a very long time. The second most popular way of fighting is, say I'm fighting Hungary. I wait until they siege my province. I take all my troops and I stand on, I attack them and push them back. They retreat all the way down to Leica. I follow them onto Leica with all my troops, and each step I take 5% attrition, 5% attrition, 5% attrition, 5% attrition, 5% attrition. I lose a ton of troops just walking across their lands. Like, it's very costly. I attack their army again, it retreats up to Zeps. I take 5% attrition, 5% attrition, 5% attrition, 5% attrition, 5% attrition. I attack them in Zeps, and now their army is literally destroyed, and there are no troops left for Hungary. I split my army up like this. I select my 23 units, and I hold down the S key, and then I drag select, and I hold down the S key, drag select, hold down the S key, and then over here in the armies tab, I hold down the S key, and just keep splitting my dudes up until I have the largest group of troops I have is just 1 soldier or 2 soldiers or whatever, right? So now I have a bunch of teeny tiny groups of armies. And I take these armies and I carpet siege all of Hungary like this. You send 1 troop there, 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 like this. And you carpet siege all their land, right? So you can see how all of my troops have different places that they're planning to go. And then now Hungary can't recruit any soldiers, because you can only recruit soldiers in a province that isn't sieged up. So that's called carpet sieging. And if your plan is to carpet siege, then quantity is the best idea group. Because it just lets you have more troops. That's why it's called quantity, right? Quantity equals way more troops. And cheaper troops. Very cheap, lots of them. More manpower, more troops, higher force limits. Plus 50% force limits is insane. Instead of 27 troops, I'm going to have 50% more than that. I mean, that's a big, big deal. Offensive and quantity kind of go together, because same deal. It's going to make your troops stronger. It's going to allow you to sprint so that you can more quickly wipe someone's army and be more likely to wipe their army in 2 tries instead of 3. It's going to make you siege 20% faster, and it's going to give you plus 20% more force limits, even more force limits. So if you take quantity and offensive together, you can carpet siege anyone in the game. As long, you make 400 troops and you beat them, and then you sprint to where they're going to land, and you beat them again, you sprint to where they're going to land and beat them again, and then you carpet siege their whole territory. And that combination is really powerful and really fun, and I really recommend playing, for example, Castile or something like that, and just take quantity plus offensive as your first 2 idea groups, and just make an infinite troops and be like, ah! And those 2 things go really well together with trade, right? Because if you have a huge force limit and tons of manpower, you're going to need tons of money to fund those troops. So I really like Castile with quantity first, then offensive, then trade. That's a really fun game. You should give it a shot. Then the other 2 idea groups, quality and defensive, are kind of the opposite idea. They're very much centered around that, like, I'm going to siege up one province and you're never going to get me out of there. Then I'm going to siege up the provinces around it and you're never going to get me out of there. So that other way of fighting is very much defensive and quality. You want high quality troops, not very many of them. And you want your troops to be really good at defending anyone who tries to attack them. Because if I put all my troops here and you attack me and then I move these troops in to help defend, I am defending. So defensive is awesome. So those are your 2 choices. Quantity and offensive for carpet sieging, or quality and defensive for bulging or slow pushing through people's booty or something. And then again, naval is pointless. Don't ever take naval, or I'll punch you right in the face. That's it, man. We totally covered all the idea groups and all that stuff. Policies? I don't really want to go over policies, but just so you know, there's a thing called policies, and policies are unlocked when you fully complete 2 idea groups, you get a policy. That is like, if you for example, if you did economic and quantity, then the policy associated might be like cheaper troops, because it just makes sense. Like, we have lots of troops and we're good at our economy, so we get cheaper troops. Ta-da! I don't really use policies at all. So you can look them up on the wiki, but I don't think they're worth using because they cost monarch points. And why would you ever want to pay monarch points in exchange for money? Remember, there are 3 resources, and the most valuable is monarch points. Then money, then manpower. So why would you ever trade monarch points for money when it's less valuable than monarch points? So don't use policies, they're dumb. They're a great idea, and they add a lot of depth to the game if anyone is dumb enough to use them, but I just don't think they're worth it. Yeah, so missions and decisions I actually kind of already covered. You have various missions. Some of the default missions that everyone gets access to, like except culture shift, are really worth mentioning because you can switch your primary culture to any culture that is majority in your nation. So if, for example, you're Mantua and you only have 1 province, and that province's culture is Lombard, which is the culture of basically all of Italy, right? And you want to form the nation of Prussia as Mantua because you're weird, then what you can do is take Danzig, which is Prussian, and then take Marienburg, which is Prussian. Now 2 of your provinces are Prussian and only 1 of them is Lombard. So you can accept the cultural shift mission to say, you know what, I am now Prussian as a nation. And then you can form Prussia and get Prussian national ideas and cool stuff like that. So some examples of how people have used that to great effect is England. I've seen a game where England took all of the Prussian provinces, culture shifted to Prussian, and became Prussia. And then they were Prussia on the British Isles, and they were like colonizing the New World as Prussia. It was pretty funny. A very common one, you can form Byzantium, which is the name of the Eastern Holy Roman Empire. Not Holy Roman, but the Eastern Roman Empire. You can form Byzantium as anyone, as long as you take the Byzantine cores and the Greek culture stuff. So because historically, like in real life, the Greeks owned tons of territory, it can be interesting to people to take a bunch of Greek provinces, culture shift to Greek, and then form Byzantium, and then be like, I am the Byzantine Empire revisited, and just like take over all the world and be like, Byzantium forever. So that's a pretty common one, culture shift wise. Anyway, these are all just like, you can read them and see the benefits and then click on them. It's like, it's not even worth going over. You'll figure it out. Stability and expansion, we actually kind of already went over this. Overextension, when you take a new province, you gain some overextension. Never let your overextension go over 100. If it goes over 100, you'll get dramatic revolts. All of your legitimacy will go away. People will be like, you're not a legitimate monarch, you took too much territory. And your prestige will get tanked, and you'll get revolts everywhere, and it'll just be tragic. Don't ever go over 100 overextension. You can. The game will let you. And the cost will be lots of money, lots of revolt risk, lots of manpower fighting those revolts. You know, you'll lose a lot of trade. But so it's worth paying that cost sometimes. If you're going for a world conquest, maybe you go to 300 overextension. I wouldn't, but it's not like it's impossible. It's just that the cost is very high. Stability, I mean, I say I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. I have repeatedly gone over 200 overextension. And I'll do it again. I'm just saying it's not a good idea. As if you're looking for a rule of thumb, the rule of thumb is don't do that. But there are times when, you know, do that. This bar, rebels will break your country. This is a way of preventing the game from spiraling into an unwinnable situation, okay? So imagine you're the Ottomans. You fought the Mamluks. The Mamluks sieged every one of your provinces, and your war exhaustion got to maximum. You ran out of all your diplomatic power trying to pay it down. You ran out of all of your administrative power. Your king dies, and now you have a 000 king on the throne, and you have a ton of revolt risk in every province. You took out a ton of loans to try to fight the Mamluks. You went bankrupt. So at that point, not only do you have no money, no manpower, but none of your troops are capable of fighting, and you have huge revolt risk in all your provinces, and rebels are spawning everywhere. So it's tempting at that point to just quit the game and be like, I guess I lost. That was terrible. But what happens if you actually don't quit the game is that eventually the rebels will shatter your country, and your country will break up into 2 or 3 countries, and you will still own one of those countries, and that country will get kind of a restart. because it's a new country. It's not your old country. I mean, it keeps the same tags and stuff, but your stability will get boosted all the way up to +1 for free. Your revolt risk in all your provinces will drop to 0. No one will want to revolt anymore, and all your loans will be forgiven through bankruptcy, and you'll be okay again. So from that point, you'll have the bankruptcy tag, which means you're not good at fighting, but no one will want to attack you because you're a brand new nation, so it's okay. Point is, if you ever get overrun by rebels, don't leave. Just stick in it and see what happens, because it's not that bad. And all the countries that your country breaks up into, you'll keep your cores on. That's actually what happened to the Ottomans before the game even starts. That's why I have cores on all these little tiny nations. Is I was shattered by rebels. All these nations split off from me, and now I can retake them. I can conquer all this territory, and it'll be really easy and cheap to reconquer, and it'll all be mine again. So being shattered by rebels, keep that in mind. These are all the rebel factions in your nation. You can see how the Bulgarian faction wants to form Bulgaria. The Orthodox faction wants to convert me to Orthodox. The Greek Patriots wants to form... They want to take some of my land and give it to Byzantium for free, because they're not very good at economics. The Epirot nationalist wants to form the nation of Epirus. These factions will gain percentage every once in a while. So the Bulgarian nationalists have 6 provinces that each gain 10% unrest per year. So the faction has a 60% chance of increasing the progress towards a revolt by 5% each month due to how big the unrest is. And you can click handle them, and you can like reduce the unrest in these countries by accepting demands. This would just form Bulgaria. Like, actually, I'll do this. Bam! Bulgaria now exists, right? So a second ago, I had a bunch of provinces that were all super mad at me and wanted to split off and form Bulgaria, and now Bulgaria like exists as a nation. So you can cause that to happen by clicking accept demands, which is honestly stupid. You should never do that. I mean, I just did it to show you what would happen. Or that can happen. What will happen is once this gets to 100%, then a revolt will happen, and all of these provinces will raise 10,000 of their own personal troops, up to a maximum of your current force limits. So right now my force limits is 27, so the most troops that I can have revolt at once is 27. That means it's never possible to get a revolt so big that it's impossible for you to beat it. So the general tied to those Bulgarian nationalists will be of a certain strength, and my general will be of a certain strength, and they'll defend certain provinces, and I will attack them, and we'll see who wins, and it'll deplete some of my manpower, and it'll just be like I'm fighting a war against the Bulgarian nation that doesn't quite exist yet. If they siege up several provinces, then every month that they have those provinces sieged, they tick towards getting those provinces forever, like, because they're manly men. And if that ever gets to 100%, then the nation of Bulgaria forms, just like it did right now. Now remember, I keep all my cores here because this was an accepted culture. Now, if I release through rebellions a non-accepted culture, like if the culture, see how Greek culture is green? If I were to release a nation where the culture was red, where it wasn't accepted, I would lose all my cores. But as long as it's an accepted culture, you keep all your cores, and that's one of the reasons Humanism, the idea group, can be so beneficial, is because allowing me to have more accepted cultures means whenever a rebel forms a nation out of my nation, or whenever somebody, like say Serbia, takes some of my land, then I'm going to keep my cores on all the land that they took from me. So that's important. I could easily take back all of the territory Bulgaria just got from me in a single war by just attacking them, because I have cores there. I just attack them, take it all back, no big deal. That's rebels, yo. Rebels. War exhaustion does lots of negative-y things. Core creation cost increase is the one that I notice most, because whenever I get new territory, it's always at the end of a war, which means I always have war exhaustion left over, so I'm like, I'm too impatient to wait before coring. I'm just going to reduce my war exhaustion and immediately core stuff. But it also increased revolt risk, obviously. I mean, that's supposed to be the biggest one that you notice. But the another big one is goods produced nationally. This reduces both your trade income and your production income, so it's a big deal. I think when you get to maximum war exhaustion, that's going to add up to a total of 40% reduction in production and trade. So, war exhaustion is kind of spooky. This is why taking innovation as your first idea group can be quite beneficial. Now, colonial range is how far away you can core territory. So, for example, if I attacked if I attacked Naples right now and I took this province, I could core it because it's close to Epirus. How close is it to Epirus? Well, I don't know, but let's say it's 100 away. Whether or not I can core it is determined by this number. If this number is 160, I can core things up to 160 away, so maybe I can't core Sardinia. As I take up, this number will get bigger, and there are also ideas that make it bigger and policies that make it bigger, and that would mean that I could take Sardinia and core it even though I don't have anything super close to Sardinia. So the later you go into the game, the further away you can core stuff, to the point where in the late game, as like Savoy, you can core like Utrecht, even though it's ridiculously far away. Like it's all the way along the coast up to Utrecht. Well, you can still core it because your coring range gets insanely large. So in the super late game, that's why you'll see in the late game people start to beat up India, because India is of the Indian tech group, which is a totally terrible tech group. So you can send like 10,000 troops over to India and just start coring their stuff, because your colonial range is so long at that point. And that's just because historically that's what happened. So they're trying to represent that, man. And then let's see. Administrative efficiency. If you get ahead in admin tech, you're going to gain administrative efficiency. I honestly just ignore this. It's like between -10 and +10% effectiveness at collecting taxes, which honestly I don't give a crap about. And stability we already talked about. National unrest, you can mouse over this just to see what's causing you to have so much national unrest. Religious unity for me is a big one. Like half my provinces are Orthodox, so I have a lot of religious unity revolt risk. And then religion. Each religion is different, and these are the benefits of your various religions. Sunni has -1 revolt risk for provinces that are Sunni, and 100% increased chance of having a new heir. So normally your chance of having a baby is 5% per nation that you have a royal marriage with. You remember I royal married 2 nations, so I currently have a 10% chance to generate a new heir. But because I'm Sunni, my chance to generate a new heir is actually 110%, not just 10%. So that means every month there is a 110% chance that I will have a baby. So you're basically never going to not have a baby with Sunnis, and that's a really big advantage, because one of the most frustrating things in this game is when you have an old king and his babies die. You have to have new babies, and then you don't for a long time, and then if that king also dies and he didn't have any heirs, then now the whole nation shifts to a new dynasty, and there can be succession wars. Like, say for example the third place dude in the line of succession is the King of France, then now you are part of France, and no one wants to be part of France when they used to be the Ottoman Empire. It's not cool. You form basically a personal union in which you have to fight a war in order to stop being part of France, and that's not fun. So having babies is a pretty big advantage. Different religions get different advantages, but none of the religious advantages are really, I don't know, I don't think they're really worth mentioning. Basically, you can just mouse over them and read them, but they're not crazy. You don't need to pay too much attention to religion. The only thing within religion that you do need to pay attention to is this. You have to convert all your provinces to the correct religion over time. Never send a missionary anywhere where they're not going to be successfully converting anything. Like right now, he's got a 0.68% per month chance of moving the progress bar or something like that. It's going to take him like 70 months. Let's see. 66 months to convert this province. If my stability were to drop to -3, then this would now have a dash, and I just want to cancel my missionary. You don't want a missionary sitting somewhere not doing anything, because he's generating a bunch of revolt risk in that province, or unrest as they call it. And this is the coolest tab, but we're going to have to save this for next time. I think we've reached the point where I've basically talked about everything except for power projection and this military tab. So next time, dudes, next time.